I'm Dr. Amber Wright, and this is Say More, a podcast for accomplished women who want more honesty in the way they live, love, and lead. This is a space for us to explore the questions that shape our lives and deepen our connections with ourselves and each other. If you're finally ready to reclaim the parts of yourself you've given away to everything and everyone else, you're in the right place. It's time to choose yourself. It's time to say more. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Say More with Dr. Amber. Today I want to have a conversation about good girl conditioning, and specifically how to recognize it and what to do about it if you don't want to be subject to it any longer. The phrase good girl conditioning is something that has become more mainstream, I guess, or just popular in popular psychology. We see it all over social media, and there's all these different ways in which people define it. But I want to start by saying that the word conditioning itself, and I'm reading this here, is a process of changing behavior by rewarding or punishing a subject each time an action is performed until the subject associates the action with pleasure or distress. A process of changing behavior by rewarding or punishing a subject each time the action is performed. That's like crazy to me. But when you think about it in the context of good girl conditioning, then I'm going to reward you every time you make me comfortable, every time you do what I want to do, every time you defer to me and you don't rock the boat, you don't say how you feel. I'm going to reinforce that, and I'm going to show you and teach you how that's a good thing if you do this. And it's a bad thing if you don't. And I feel like on a really fundamental level, that's something that we all can understand in terms of why that might be problematic in the context of our relationships. So some other ways that you might recognize good girl conditioning that you might have to unlearn or behaviors is, again, you just be nice, be sweet, don't make waves, make everybody comfortable. You're the peacemaker in the family. And for some of you, you might feel like this is inherent to who you are, and you feel like showing up in that way is of service to you, which I say that's fantastic if you feel that way. And I'm not trying to tell you who not to be, but this is for people who recognize these behaviors and don't want to keep doing it. You feel like you're going to lose your shit if you continue to stand almost like trapped, like a caged bird in a prison of your life and in a prison of people pleasing and not doing what you want to do. And if that resonates, you're who I'm talking to, and this episode is for you. So some things that are on my mind concerning this, and I might even skip around as I'm just kind of riffing here off of my notes, is that good girl conditioning can teach us a lot about our worth. It shows you that your worth is tied to being agreeable, accommodating, non-threatening, again, very easygoing. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Whatever you want to do, it's okay. But you know on the inside, you are choking on the truth, which is, no, I don't want to do this thing. I don't want to go here with you. No, I don't want your number. Okay, sorry. I had to get that out because that's the way my brain thinks. I literally think in lyrics. But anyway, you know that you don't really be wanting to do the stuff that you be agreeing to do. But you might have been raised in a family where being a good girl, again, is rewarded, or culturally being subservient and just doing whatever you're told is how it works in your family or how it worked in your childhood. And so when you have had however many years of foundational learning that it's better for you to be seen and not heard, then it's hard to actually unlearn that. To do that can feel so threatening to your life and how you want to live and your safety, and not in, well, in some respects, in your physical safety. And I pray that you can find support and resources to escape that type of circumstance if you're in it, but more so the psychological safety of, well, what are they going to think of me and what's going to happen if I don't agree? And suddenly, like, I'm bucking up against what people expect me to do. So because that doesn't feel safe, now you look up and you've had a lifetime of being an expert at reading the room, managing everybody else's emotions, making yourself smaller so as not to intimidate the woman on your team or your boss, your partner, whoever. And now you feel like you can't even build authentic relationships because so many of your relationship dynamics are built on a performance. And when that performance gets old, or like we're hearing a lot of people talk about now that women in menopause and perimenopause, like the literal level of estrogen in their body has changed in their hormones to where they literally like don't have the filter anymore that they used to have to keep the peace. So they're saying things the way they mean it, and they're being more direct and forthcoming. And that can feel alarming to the people around you that you might have spent a lot of time with, to suddenly see you like showing up differently. But that's kind of how it goes. So you might be in a place where you hormonally, you're not seeing that shift yet, but you know that there's that whisper. You hear me talk about it all the time. Listen to the whisper before it becomes a roar. That's saying that, hey girl, there might be another way for you to show up, because how you're moving is suffocating who you truly are on the inside. And you want to get rid of that performance and of that version of yourself that you don't enjoy projecting. And so I just want to honor that when it comes to good girl conditioning and it being tied to your sense of worth, you were probably taught that your needs have to come last, and that the least amount of trouble that you cause, the better. And you, again, find yourself having abandoned yourself because that's your only way of being. And the sad part about that is, like I said a moment ago, it sabotages your ability to make genuine connections with people. And how you know is when you feel yourself restraining, you don't say what you're really thinking, you don't laugh as hard as you might want to laugh at something that you find funny, you don't let people see you be silly. Like only a few amount of people, if anyone, really get to see you in your true self. I had a relationship with somebody like that before, where he was so caught up in performing for other people. And so now, I mean, gosh, it's funny that I'm using this example as a man and we're talking about good girl conditioning, but I think that men can be subject to it as well. But what I'm trying to get at is I remember feeling like, oh, everybody gets to meet your representative. Somebody like me only broke through because you let me see you, and you don't let everybody see you. So that might be true for you as well. You might be the type of person that operates in this performance from 9 to 5 all day long, 24/7 or whatever the case. And you don't trust very many people. And so you don't let anyone really get to see who you really are. But now you are stuck in this prison of people pleasing as a form of self-protection, disguised as kindness, or whenever you say no, you're teaching people that your yes doesn't mean anything. You know, real connection requires showing up honestly, but for you, it's super uncomfortable because now the longer you go forward in this charade, the more you are training, then that's kind of like your own form of conditioning, because now you're training the people around you and in your life to depend on this version of you, this character. Like, to use another man as an example, which I don't know is the best idea, given that I'm trying to talk to women here, but Will Smith is a great example of this as well. If you listened to or read his book, Will, he talks about like basically Will Smith, the movie star, was a character. That was someone who he dreamt up. But Will Smith, the man on the inside, was a wounded little boy who was afraid of his abusive father. And he felt like a coward on the inside because he couldn't protect his mother from his father's abuse. And so this big mega-sized career that he created was to distance himself from the true version of who he really was. And then now his family and loved ones are dealing with, they're caught up now in this picture that he created for himself and involved real people, his wife, Jada, all their children and everything. And he says it a lot in interviews too, that one day Willow, his daughter, said to him, Daddy has a family in his mind that he thinks we're supposed to be, and we're not that. And that was one of the things that broke him and helped him to see that, like, I need to change that whole charming, wanting to make everybody happy and smile and shaking hands and kissing babies, that was an act. Who he really was the man who slapped Chris Rock or punched Chris Rock on the Oscar stage. Okay. So that was why it was so like, oh my God. But if you read his book, he's still just a nigga from Philly. Right. So anyway, off on a tangent here, but we see the ways in which people pleasing and good girl conditioning can sabotage your connections and your relationships. That's the point that I want to drive home here, that you have trained everybody to depend on this version of yourself that's not even real. And you don't know what to do about that. You don't know how to stop that. And it's kind of eating you up on the inside. And to that, I will say, unlearning good girl conditioning isn't just like a one-time deal. You might make the decision to say, yes, I'm going to unlearn this, but it then becomes a daily practice of learning how to choose yourself, even when it feels like you're being selfish. You know, that whole saying that self-care isn't selfish. This is kind of in that same spirit, that the best way for you to unlearn good girl conditioning is, one, decide that you will no longer abandon your true self, that you will no longer betray her. And she may feel betrayed every time you don't speak up. You aren't honest about what you really want. You don't do the thing that you want to do, and you just go along to get along. You stay in that job longer than you should. You stay in that relationship longer than you should. You stay in that friendship, even though it's one-sided, longer than you should. You don't have any boundaries. All of those things can look like betrayal to your true self, or that version of yourself who wants to expand. So first, you have to decide that I don't want to show up this way anymore. I want people to see me and to know me more intimately and more authentically. And I am no longer deciding to betray myself. Those decisions become foundational on your journey to unlearning the conditioning. That's like the framework for it, so that every decision that you make afterward lends itself to you moving forward in that direction. And I know it's going to be hard and it's going to be uncomfortable, but once you make those decisions, then you start to make smaller ones each day that line up with what you said that you wanted. So that means you're going to have to get real cozy and comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're going to have to sit with feelings of guilt, the big one of just feeling like you're disappointing people. But I have to tell you that, like I've said to you before, there's no way for you to really get free without disappointing some people. It's in the fine print of this process. So get comfortable with that, because it's going to happen. And some examples, so I'll share a little bit more here about what that has looked like for me. But I have an older sister and a younger brother, but I was raised with my sister, and she's 3 years older than me. And so when you're the younger child, you watch and observe what's happening around you, and then that helps you make your own decisions about what you wanted for yourself. My sister seemed like she was always in trouble. She was always getting whooping and stuff like that. And I was like, ooh, that ain't part of God's calling on my life. I do not want to get beat like she be getting in trouble. So I learned very quickly to be on the straight and narrow and to not cause my mama no stress or no angst. And I just did not want to be in trouble. And looking back on it now, she probably was just being, your regular kid, regular teenager, pushing boundaries and just doing the things that kids do. But from the seat that I sat in, my mama was the type of mama who she came to the part with a belt around her neck, okay, with rollers in her hair. She was not on that type of time where we playing around, right? Like she was definitely about that belt, okay? So I didn't want that for myself. And that was one of the ways that I learned to be literally a good girl. And because there was a lot of moving around and stuff in my childhood and a lot of instability in that way, I just learned really quickly how to do what's right, do what's expected of me, don't challenge, don't talk back, don't speak up, just keep your head down and go with the flow. I always did well in school. I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different states, and I was on the honor roll in each of them. I just did what I was supposed to do and what was expected of me. Whatever I would or could do that would cause my mama the least amount of stress or heartache. That was part of it. That was what was expected. I remember even being, I think I was a junior in high school. I asked to go to a football game and she was like, no, you can't go. And I was like, why can't I go? Like, I never asked to go anywhere. I'm always here with you. Like, I just go to school and I come home. I want to go to this football game. And she was just like, no, because I said so. Okay. You know, that's the classic Black mama playbook, because I said so. And I think it was the next day or sometime shortly thereafter, we were watching an episode of Ricky Lake, and this one teenager, I think she had gotten pregnant and she was just like out in the streets. I remember I turned to my mom. I said, you know that could be you. That could be you on that TV stage dealing with your, you know, rambunctious teenager. But all I'm trying to do is just go to the football game and hang out with my friends. So that was the first time I had ever felt like even remotely comfortable kind of speaking up for myself and advocating for myself. But those foundations, they stayed with me all the way into adulthood. So I get married 1 or 2 years out of college. It was 2. I graduated, maybe 3. Let's see, I graduated in 2003. I met my husband in 2004, and we got married in 2006. So we're not talking about a long stretch of time of me learning how to stand on my own 2 feet and learn how to advocate for myself and things like that. So a lot of those behaviors I took into my marriage. And I deferred to my husband in some ways. One, because I thought this is what I was supposed to do. And that's how like a traditional Black Christian marriage is established. Man is the head of the household and all this craziness. But a lot of it was less about that, because my husband is not he's not an overbearing, controlling type of person. So it wasn't that per se, but it was really more about me not knowing how to fully speak up for myself and advocate for myself and like get what I needed. I was headstrong and headstrong in the way of if I made a goal or a decision, I would pursue it. You know, I finished college as a first generation college student. Shortly after we got married, I knew I wanted to go back to school and get my master's, which I did. I was very rigid in my planning, as you might have heard. I've talked about it before, and I will continue to talk about it on this season of the podcast. But very much by the book. Here's my list. I'm checking it twice. I'm doing all the things that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. But when it came to actually like using my voice to speak up and to challenge him and to be like, nah, player, you want some bullshit, we need to talk about it. It took me a long time to really get to a place of doing that from a true place of confidence. And that's what unlearning that conditioning looked like for me, because I've spent all of my adulthood in my marriage for the most part. So a lot of trial and error there with not going along to get along, with saying, hey, I don't like this, or I don't like how you're moving, or the decisions that you've made, or I just have thoughts that I want to contribute to this conversation or to these decisions that we make as a family. And one thing that has always worked to our advantage, my husband and I, is that we do make really good teammates. Like, we're good partners in that sense. But even in that type of dynamic, there can still be moments where there's friction. And I spent far too long being amenable and taking a lot of things just on the chin, not literally, but, you know, I think you understand what I mean by that, by just staying small and not really knowing how to stand fully in my power, I think. So I had to make those same decisions that I said that you have to make, of starting small and saying, I'm not going to betray myself anymore. I'm going to honor whatever my truth is. I'm going to speak up and I'm going to move accordingly, period, point blank. And it's taken time, and he had to adjust because, again, this is a different version of myself now. I've always been the smart and intelligent and brilliant and fairly outspoken person that y'all know me to be. I think that's part of what he fell in love with about me. But it's in some of those quieter moments when you know that you're not really standing in the truth of how you're feeling, is that, you know, being the good girl doesn't serve you, and learning how to color outside the lines and not be afraid to fail and not be afraid to make mistakes. That's how I unlearned perfectionism as well. It's that same kind of effort of breaking some of those limits that I put on myself. So if I had to summarize what I've shared with you today, some things that I want you to keep in mind is that, you know, your good girl conditioning taught you that your worth depends on making other people comfortable. And that comes by way of people pleasing, which can turn into a performance, which then sabotages and blocks your genuine connections and authentic connections with real people that you let see you. And so in order to unlearn all of that and to make a change, you're going to have to get comfortable with the discomfort that comes by way of disappointing other people and doing whatever you feel might look selfish to you. As I'm recording this, I ain't even at home, y'all. I'm on my little solo trip that I take once a quarter by myself. No husband, no kids. I put my phone on D&D and I just relax or work or write, whatever I want to do. This is what I do. And I get to listen to my whims and do whatever I feel like doing. And practicing that started out by me just going to lunch by myself and calling my little Amber Appreciation Day and taking time to myself. And then that evolved into taking trips once a quarter. It's taken years, but mom guilt doesn't serve me. Being away from my kids is healthy for me and it's healthy for them. Same thing with the husband. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Amen. So whatever that looks like for you, it may not be the same for you as it is for me, but those are some small steps that I took to say, you know what? I'm ready to rock the boat now. You want Sophia here now. Okay. So I had to make some changes and it's worked. And to my joy and surprise in some ways, the world didn't end and the sky didn't fall. So this week, I just want you to do one thing that prioritizes your needs over someone else's comfort. You're going to feel the guilt, but do it anyway. You can practice saying no to one small thing. You don't got to go to every PTA meeting, every board meeting. You don't got to go. Just stay home and say, I'm going to take a nap. Okay. Practice saying no and give yourself permission. The permission that you're waiting for, like I always say, is in your hand. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if it was. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Say More. If this episode hit home for you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another one. And don't forget to share it with your group chat so all of y'all can level up together. If you want personalized support about today's topic, visit wordswellsaid.com to learn more about how to work with me for coaching or how you can book me to speak at your job, conference, or event. In the meantime, keep in touch with me online at Dr. Amber Wright. And until you hear from me again, remember to use your words and then go forth and be awesome.